Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions, where real stories unfold, and sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truths. Now, let me tell you about the last morning I ever made her coffee. The spoon clinked twice in the mug. I didn't stir it more than that. Not out of laziness. I just didn't want to hear the sound any longer than necessary. Something about that sound started to make my stomach turn. She hadn't said good morning. Not a nod. Not a look. Just sat at the far end of the couch, scrolling like her phone was oxygen and I was just recycled air. I placed the coffee near her elbow, the way I always did. Handle turned right. Napkin folded underneath. She liked it that way. Or used to. She didn't touch it. Didn't even blink. I stood there for 3 seconds longer than I should have. And I made the mistake of reaching out, just to touch her shoulder. Just to make contact with the person I'd been sleeping next to for almost 8 years. And that's when she exploded. I don't want to hug you. It wasn't a sentence. It was a gunshot. I didn't move at first. Just stood there, eyes wide, hands still midair, heart somewhere under the floorboards. She turned to glare at me, not with sadness or pain, just exhaustion. As if my love was a burden. She didn't say sorry. She didn't cry. She just went back to her scrolling. I walked upstairs like a ghost and sat on the edge of our bed. Not my bed. Our bed. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. There were 2 pillows, but only one looked slept on. Her perfume didn't linger anymore. Just this faint, unfamiliar cologne from some team dinner 2 nights ago. I didn't need proof. But I got it anyway. A name. A hotel. A receipt. A man who called her Cal. In text like he'd earned the right to abbreviate her. I read every message, every emoji, every late-night plan disguised as a client call. I was never part of her schedule. Just a footnote at the bottom. That night I didn't argue. Didn't confront her. Didn't ask why or how long. I just let her have one last evening with the version of me who tried. Because in the morning, I would be someone else. The next day, I placed my key on the counter. She was halfway through slicing an apple. I didn't wait for eye contact. Goodbye, I said, steady but soft. I don't want to support you anymore. She snorted. She actually snorted. Like I was the punchline to a joke only she understood. But what happened next, she never saw coming. None of them did. She thought I'd come crawling back. You could see it in the way she barely lifted her eyes when I walked out. Like it was just another tantrum from the man she no longer feared losing. She didn't say a word when the door closed behind me. Didn't ask where I was going. Didn't ask if I'd be back. And I didn't offer her the courtesy of a lie. I didn't go far that day. Just 2 towns over to an old motel with flickering signs and coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard. It wasn't luxury, but it had something I hadn't felt in months. Quiet. No slamming drawers. No passive sighs from across the room. No secret texting under the covers. Just me, an empty room, and the slow realization that I had absolutely no idea who the hell I was without her. But the silence? That was the strange part. She didn't call. Not even once. Not to ask where her husband was. Not to pretend she cared. And that, honestly, hurt more than her screaming. I sat there for hours, reading over everything I'd found. The texts. The emails. The hotel confirmations she forgot to delete from our shared calendar. This man she'd been seeing, Rhett, wasn't even someone impressive. Just some mid-level brand consultant who quoted motivational podcasts and used phrases like, "We vibrate on the same frequency." She once told me I was boring, that I didn't challenge her anymore. Maybe that was true. Maybe I was boring. But I also didn't lie to her. I didn't use our money to rent hotel rooms in secret. I didn't tell another woman that my wife doesn't understand me. I was boring because I was loyal, steady, predictable. And yet, I was the one in a motel room with a vending machine dinner while she was probably with him, drinking wine bought with my paycheck, undercovers I helped pay for. I knew then I couldn't just leave. Not like that. Because leaving quietly would mean letting her keep the narrative. And I wasn't going to let her turn me into the villain of a story she authored in lies. So I made a list. It sounds petty, I know. But I wrote down every single thing I had done for her. Emotionally, financially, physically. I listed every bill I'd covered when she was building her wellness startup, which, by the way, never made $1. I listed the favors I did for her family, helping her brother get out of debt, driving her mom to appointments she never offered to go to herself. I documented everything. And then I printed it all. Pages of it. And the next day, I called her boss. Yeah, I did that. Because the company Rhett and Kaylee worked for? Small. Family-owned. Very traditional. Not exactly thrilled about inter-office affairs, especially ones that happened on company retreats booked with the company credit card. I didn't make a scene. I didn't scream or throw things. I just forwarded screenshots, hotel dates, messages. Then I waited. By the time Kaylee called me, 2 days later, her voice was shaking. She said, "Ellis, what did you do?" I didn't answer. I let her sit in the silence she had so often given me. She said she lost her job, that Rhett had distanced himself, that she didn't understand how everything fell apart so fast. And then, the line I'll never forget. "You didn't have to go this far." I finally spoke. "You didn't have to cheat." Then I hung up. That was the first time in years that I felt any control. But I wasn't done. Not yet. 3 days after I disconnected that call, I heard a knock on the motel door. Not a polite knock. A frantic one. The kind that doesn't wait for permission. I didn't move. I just sat on the edge of the bed, still in the same hoodie I'd been wearing the night before, watching the door like it might dissolve if I stared hard enough. Another knock. Then her voice. "Ellis, open the door, please." I closed my eyes. It was the first time in years she'd said my name like that. Like I still mattered. I stood up slowly and opened it. There she was. Hair a mess, no makeup, eyes puffed. Her coat hung awkwardly off one shoulder, and in her hand, she clutched her phone like it might save her. But all I saw was someone who used to be my wife, looking like she'd finally stepped out of the perfect storm she created, and realized she forgot an umbrella. "You ignored all my texts," she said breathlessly. "Yeah," I replied, "because I read all yours to Rhett first." She flinched. Then, as if rehearsed, she launched into an apology. A full-throttle performance. Tears, hand gestures, mentions of confusion, loneliness, and that worn-out phrase. It didn't mean anything. But here's the thing. I didn't need an apology anymore. I needed her to stop rewriting history in front of me. I needed her to stop pretending like she was the one left behind. I let her inside. Not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to hear just how far she'd twist it now that her fairy tale had ended in unemployment and a ghosted affair. She sat on the foot of the bed and stared at the stained motel carpet like it had answers. "He told me he loved me," she whispered. "And then he just vanished." I said nothing. "Ellis, I didn't mean to fall for him. It was just supposed to be fun. Something light. Something to help me feel." "What?" I interrupted. "Alive? Desired? Better than me?" She swallowed hard. "Less invisible." Those two words hit harder than I expected. I had spent the better part of 7 years trying to keep her visible. Birthdays, surprises, posting her art on my social media, even when no one liked it but my mom, holding her hand in public, cheering at every yoga demo or craft fair table. I gave her a spotlight, but maybe it was never big enough. "I'm not here to fix you anymore," I said flatly. "You told me not to touch you." I listened. She looked up with glassy eyes. "You didn't even fight for me." I actually laughed. A dry, gutted laugh. "I fought for you every single day when you didn't even notice I was bleeding." The silence was long and tense. "I want to come home," she said quietly. I turned away, walked to the tiny window, looked out at the parking lot. A stray shopping cart rolled slowly in the wind, bumping against the curb like it couldn't find its way either. "You already burned it down, Kaylee," I whispered. "There is no home left." That night she left. Not with anger, not with screaming, just a slow, defeated shuffle into the cold. I watched her walk away, hugging her own arms for warmth. And for once, I didn't feel the urge to chase after her. I locked the door, turned off the lights, and began planning my return, not to her, but to myself. I didn't rush back. After Kaylee left the motel that night, I stayed another 4 days. I needed time, not to grieve her. That part had burned away the moment I read her texts to Rhett. What I needed was space, to figure out who I was without her constant orbit around me. It's strange how quickly a marriage can go from forever to when did this all turn into a lie. On the morning I checked out, the manager handed me a receipt with a polite, "Good luck, sir." I wanted to laugh, or maybe cry. Instead, I nodded and stepped out into the light rain like a man trying to remember what dry ground ever felt like. The drive home was oddly quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't want noise. I needed to hear my own thoughts, something I hadn't done in years. Most of the time, I was too busy listening for Kaylee's approval, too worried about saying the wrong thing, too cautious about whether she'd be warm that night or cold as stone. But now, There was only me. And my thoughts. And they weren't all pretty. I pulled into the driveway just after noon. The house looked exactly the same from the outside, but something about it felt unfamiliar. Like it had aged without me. Or maybe I'd aged without it. I stepped inside and instantly noticed the changes. Half the furniture was gone. She'd taken the coffee table, the bar cart, her favorite paintings. Left behind the things that didn't match her new narrative. The wedding photos still in their frames, the throw blanket my mom made her last Christmas, the broken lamp she always meant to replace, but never did. I stood in the living room, staring at the spot where our couch used to be. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was empty. I wandered upstairs. The closet was gutted on her side. A few wire hangers dangled like forgotten bones. The bed still had both pillows, but only one looked used. Hers. I guess she came back while I was gone. Slept here alone. Maybe even cried. I'd be lying if I said the thought didn't make something tighten in my chest. But it wasn't sympathy. It was just the leftover ghost of who I used to be. I sat at my desk and opened the drawer where I kept our important papers. Insurance documents. Tax records. Old anniversary cards we never threw out. Inside, I found something I hadn't expected, a small envelope with my name on it. Her handwriting. Sloppy. Probably written in a rush. I opened it. It wasn't an apology. Not really. Just 4 sentences. Ellis, I never meant to destroy you. I didn't know how lost I was until I lost you. You were always better than I deserved. I'm sorry for not knowing it until too late. Kaylee. I stared at that note for a long time. I should have felt something. But I didn't. Not anger. Not forgiveness. Just tired. I placed the letter back in the drawer, closed it, and made my way to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. Empty. Just a bottle of mustard and a half-used oat milk I never drank. I laughed quietly to myself. This was it. The aftermath. A hollow house, a broken routine, and the chance to finally rebuild, but from nothing. And maybe, weirdly, that was exactly what I needed. That night, I slept in our bed alone. And for the first time in years, I didn't dream about her. But someone else did show up the next morning, and they brought news that made everything explode again. I had barely started boiling water for coffee when the doorbell rang. It was early, maybe 7:20 a.m. I stood there for a moment, unsure if I'd imagined it. But then came a second ring, firmer this time. I opened the door, and there she was, Lainey, Kaylee's younger sister. Lainey and I had always had an odd relationship. Not close, but not cold either. She was the kind of person who observed everything and said little. The type that always noticed when something felt off, but never pushed. Even on the day Kaylee and I got married, I remember her watching us from the edge of the crowd with a look I couldn't place. Not judgment, not exactly. Maybe something closer to quiet doubt. She stood there in a hoodie and leggings, holding her phone in one hand and a tote bag in the other, as if she had walked straight from chaos to my doorstep. "Can I come in?" she asked. No small talk. No hi. I stepped aside silently. She didn't sit, just walked in slow circles in the living room like she was measuring the space with her thoughts. "I'm not here because Kaylee sent me," she began. "She doesn't even know I'm here." That alone made my stomach tighten. "She's spiraling," she said. "But I'm not here to talk about her feelings." Lainey finally looked at me. Her voice dropped a register. "Ellis, there's something I need to tell you. And it's not about Rhett." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, saying nothing, just listening. "She's been cheating on you a lot longer than you think," she said quietly. "Rhett isn't the first." I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. Maybe I already knew. Lainey stepped closer and lowered her voice. "You remember 2 years ago, when she said she went to that 3-day wellness retreat in Asheville?" I nodded slowly. Kaylee had claimed it was a last-minute spot that opened through her yoga studio. She came back tanned, relaxed, and distant. "She wasn't in Asheville," Lainey continued. "She was in Chicago, with a guy she met at a design expo." I stared at her. My pulse began to throb in my neck. I only found out because she accidentally airdropped something to my phone a week later. Pictures. Videos. I didn't know what to do, Ellis. She begged me not to say anything. Said it was over. Said you'd never forgive her and that it would ruin her life. Lainey's eyes started to fill, but she kept her voice steady. I told myself it wasn't my business, that you guys would figure it out on your own. But after what she did with Rhett, and then got fired, and still won't take any responsibility. She paused. "You deserve the truth. All of it." I turned away, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter. I could feel my fingers go cold. That retreat, had happened during the summer I was saving for our kitchen remodel. I had worked overtime, skipped weekends, even sold some old collectibles just to pay for it. And while I was sweating through 16-hour shifts, she was in a hotel room with a stranger. "I'm sorry," Lainey whispered. "I should have told you sooner." I didn't answer right away. There was a high-pitched buzzing in my ears, like the air itself was vibrating. "She still doesn't know I found out," Lainey added. I turned back to face her. "Why now?" She didn't hesitate. "Because she's planning to move in with Rhett this week. And I thought you should know. He's not the only one who's been stupid." I stood still, processing, failing to process. "She already made copies of your keys," Lainey continued. "I think she plans to come back. Not to apologize, but to collect what she thinks she still owns." That's when I knew I couldn't wait anymore. I wasn't going to sit around and let her treat my life like a revolving door. Lainey handed me a flash drive. "Everything I found is on here, if you ever need it." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Ellis, you were never boring. You were just stable. And people like her don't know how to live with that." Then she walked out. I locked the door behind her, slid down to the floor, and sat there with my head against the frame, clutching the flash drive like it was some kind of detonator. Because what I was about to do next would be nothing like the man I used to be. The morning Kaylee came back was overcast. Not raining, just that eerie kind of gray where everything feels still, like the whole world is waiting to inhale. I had just finished packing the last of her leftover things into boxes. Not neatly, not messily either, just deliberately, with the same care you give a wound before you stitch it shut. She didn't knock. I heard the key slide into the lock like she owned the moment. That quiet click, her confidence blooming in reverse, as if she thought she could re-enter our life like it was a paused movie she still starred in. I sat at the dining table, coffee in hand, watching the front door open. She walked in fast, already talking. "I just need to grab a few things," and then she stopped. She saw the boxes. Taped. Labeled. Waiting. "Ellis," she said, voice dipping, "what is this?" I didn't answer right away. I took a sip, leaned back, and nodded toward the stack near the hallway. "I made it easier for you," I said. "You always hated clutter." Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She took a step forward, glanced around like maybe it was a joke. Some dramatic gesture to win her back. Her eyes landed on the single folder sitting atop the pile. "You printed it?" she said, voice now barely above a whisper. I nodded. "Every email, every photo, every reservation. Chicago, Asheville, Rhett. The other guy?" "You had no right." "No," I interrupted. "You had no right. I just did what you never had the spine to do. I faced it." She folded her arms. "This is dramatic. No, this is accountability. Something you duck every time the spotlight turns cold." There was a long pause. She didn't reach for the boxes. She didn't move toward the folder. Instead, she scanned the house with eyes that looked like they were seeing it for the first time. The walls, the table, the missing couch. Her perfume was gone from the air. The silence wasn't cold anymore. It was owned by me. "You've changed," she said. I smiled softly. "No, I stopped changing for you." She sat down across from me, like it was still her right. I let her. "I know I messed up," she said. I waited. "But it wasn't all bad, Ellis." "No," I said, "but it was all one-sided." She looked down, fidgeting with her sleeves. "Rhett blocked me. That's not my business. He told his wife. She kicked him out." I blinked. "Wait, wife?" She winced. "Yeah." I let out a short breath of disbelief. "So you were the other woman and the cheater." She flinched. "I didn't know he was married." I didn't respond. It didn't matter. It never really did. There would always be another lie behind the one she just confessed. She played truth like poker, only showing the card that kept her in the game. She looked up. "Do you still love me?" I stared at her. The woman I once built everything around. The same woman who told me, "I don't want to hug you," like my affection had expired. The one who stole not just my trust, but the years I can't get back. "I don't even know who you are," I said. Her face twitched. That line landed. She reached for the folder. "Can I take this?" "No," I said calmly. "That one's mine. You're keeping it." "Yeah, as a reminder that I don't go back to fire just because I'm cold." She stood up slowly, eyes glossed over but defiant. She gathered the boxes, one by one, and moved them toward the door. No more words. No apologies. No promises. Just silence. As she stepped outside, She turned back. For a second, I thought she might say something different this time. Something real. But instead, all she offered was a question. Will you tell anyone? I shook my head. No need, I said. The truth tells itself eventually. And then she left. For good. I closed the door, locked it, turned around. And there, in the middle of that quiet, empty room, I finally breathed. But peace didn't last long. Because an email showed up later that night, from someone I never expected, and what it said made everything unravel again. It came at 11:08 p.m. I was half asleep on the couch, a movie playing in the background that I wasn't watching, just using to drown out the silence. I wasn't even expecting any emails, no job stuff, no bills, no subscriptions. I had shut almost everything off for the sake of peace. But the ping came anyway, and the subject line made me sit up straight before I even opened it. Please read this. I think we've both been hurt by her. The sender, Madeline H. I clicked. Inside the email was short, clear, and unsettling. Ellis, my name is Madeline. I'm Rhett's wife. Or soon-to-be ex-wife. I found your name in his phone. I believe we've both been lied to by the same person. I don't know you, but I know your pain. I'm not reaching out for revenge or drama. I just think you deserve to see what he really said about Kaylee and about you. I've attached screenshots. You don't have to respond. Just read. And know you're not alone. M. My heart started pounding as I hovered over the file icon. Part of me didn't want to open it. I had already closed that chapter. Or I thought I had. But curiosity, that ugly leftover muscle from betrayal, made my hand click. It was a PDF. 27 screenshots. Messages. Emails. Snippets from Rhett's private group chats. A glimpse behind the polished persona Kaylee fell for. And it was worse than I imagined. There were jokes. Ugly ones. Her husband's some small-town maintenance guy. She says he's sweet, but dull as paint. She's staying with him for the health insurance. I told her she could milk him a little longer. Ellis thinks she's at yoga LOL. She says he folds her laundry and packs her lunch like a puppy. Honestly, I feel bad for the guy. Screenshot after screenshot. Her name. My name. Their plans. His mockery. Her agreement. I gripped my jaw so tight I felt it click. Kaylee had told Red everything. My habits. My insecurities. She handed him the parts of me I never even let my friends see. Then let him dissect me like I was some stupid pet who didn't know his leash had been cut. And the worst one? The one that made my hands shake? He's not even a man. He just follows. I don't want to be worshipped. I want to be wanted. That one was from Kaylee. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd humiliated me. Repackaged me as a joke for her affair partner to laugh at over wine and pillow talk. I slammed the laptop shut. The heat rising in my chest was new. Not the sadness I'd carried for weeks. Not the quiet ache of rejection. This was rage. A cold, clean rage that cut through the fog like a scalpel. Madeline had included her number in the email. I dialed it before I even knew why. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was calm, tired. Ellis. Yeah, I said. I read it. I figured you would. There was a long pause between us. A strange understanding shared by two people who had never met, but who'd both been shattered by the same lie. I'm sorry, she said. I know it doesn't change anything. I just couldn't keep it to myself. I'm glad you didn't. We talked for 23 minutes. It wasn't gossip. It wasn't venting. It was survival. Her voice didn't waver. She wasn't looking for pity either. She just wanted truth. We traded stories. Laughed bitterly at how similar they were. How the timelines overlapped. How Kaylee and Rhett kept spinning lies to everyone, even each other. Before we hung up, she said something I'll never forget. They were playing a game we never agreed to be part of. But that doesn't mean we have to play by their rules now. And she was right. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. I handed over everything, Lainey's flash drive, Madeline's screenshots, and my own documentation. I wasn't just walking away anymore. I was cleaning the wreckage down to the studs. But while I was building a new foundation, Kaylee was busy lighting matches. Because 2 days later, I got served. And what she was demanding was unthinkable. The envelope landed with a dull thud on my doorstep, hand-delivered by someone who didn't even make eye contact. At first, I thought it might be something from Kaylee's lawyer confirming the divorce papers. But when I opened it, I nearly laughed. She was suing me. Not just for half the house. She wanted spousal support. Kaylee, the same woman who once mocked me for being predictable, now claimed she had become financially dependent on me and deserved ongoing support. I stared at the papers for a full minute before calmly folding them back up. The old me, the one who begged for hugs and accepted crumbs of affection, might have panicked. But I wasn't him anymore. I called my lawyer immediately. He read through the paperwork and just muttered, "She's bluffing." Turns out, when you abandon your marriage to chase an affair with a married coworker, lie about your finances, and mock your spouse in text messages that are now on legal record, the courts don't exactly favor your sob story. Within a week, the claim was thrown out. Kaylee didn't even show up for the hearing. Her lawyer sent an apology and a withdrawal. That was the last time her name showed up in my inbox. No more messages. No more manipulation. A week later, I stood in my now quiet kitchen, new blinds, a second-hand table I picked out myself, and a plant I hadn't yet killed. I made coffee. Not for her. For me. And I drank it in silence, not because I was lonely, but because for the first time in years, the silence wasn't heavy. It was mine. The peace didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, through long walks alone, through rediscovered music, through learning how to cook without asking, "Will she like this?" I joined a local meetup group, not for dating, just for connection. I started sketching again, something I hadn't done since high school. I even adopted a dog, a stubborn rescue mutt named Barney who only responds to sarcasm and cheese. And yeah, sometimes I still think about her. Not with longing, just with perspective. Kaylee was a storm. Beautiful, intoxicating, destructive. But I was the house that didn't fall. To those of you watching, if someone screams they don't want to hug you, don't waste your life holding them up. Step back. Let them fall if they must. And then build something better in the space they leave behind. Thanks for watching my story here on Reddit Confessions. If any part of this hit home, or if you've lived through something just as twisted, I want to hear about it. Drop your own turning point moment in the comments below. What made you finally walk away? Let's share it. Let's own it. Because sometimes healing starts with simply saying, "I don't live in that story anymore."